And away we go. Where do I begin for this episode? Far too much, that's for sure. Yet, we're going to get into it anyway. TikTok finalizes deal to form new American version of the app. There is a lot to say on this. US and Chinese officials approved selling TikTok's US business to a consortium led by Oracle and Silver Lake, with ByteDance retaining a 19.9% stake ahead of the January 22nd, 2026 deadline. Legislation and national security concerns forced ByteDance to divest its US business after Congress passed a 2024 law framed to protect national security and prevent foreign influence. The newly formed TikTok USDS joint venture LLC will oversee US data protection, with Oracle managing user data domestically and Adam Presser leading as CEO under a majority American board. Most US users will see no immediate disruption as roughly 170 million Americans keep their accounts and content, with TikTok expected to function largely the same initially. Critics warn that ByteDance retaining a minority stake and commercial ties, plus a revenue-sharing deal, sending about half of TikTok USDS earnings back, leaves risk intact. Or in other words, every American TikTok user are now under the surveillance of another group of foreign forces that although it looks like their own, it's not their own. There are other people outside of the US involved in this. I'm not going to say who it is, maybe not for the sake of my own safety. It comes to a point that the elephant is literally in the room with us, and anyone that isn't to address the elephant in the room, well, they just don't want to admit what's in front of them. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with such instances. If it's becoming too hard to ignore at this point that there are groups of foreign adversaries, individuals who once hold positions of power or have worked in some kind of military force in another country, will likely now be surveilling the data of American TikTok users, and only American TikTok users. I'm in the UK, I'm not affected. Neither are TikTok users in France, Spain, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, any country besides the US. That is where things stand. Now, will this change anything about how Americans use TikTok? Not much at first. Eventually, though, it will become obvious that there will be a stark difference about which groups of people are pulling the strings with who is allowed to post what content stays up, and what punishments are given to those who break the community guidelines. Whichever side of the coin you're on, you better watch yourselves. Because even though this may not happen to anyone else that aren't American, who's not to say that we're not next? What if we could be what if other people around the world could also be using platforms and social media whose data is handled and surveillance under groups of individuals that hold a lot more wealth than half of a country's entire population, at least. I'm just saying, at this day and age, anything is possible. But I'm just going to be very blunt. Do not be very careful about what you are saying about whatever groups of people which you are critiquing. Even if it is remotely true and blatantly obvious, if you speak out against people in power, something's going to happen to you. And all we can say is, rest in peace to those people. I will send my condolences to the friends and family of those people. Not saying they're in the right, but I'm certainly not saying they're in the wrong either. These people who are calling out peoples in power that are pulling the strings with geopolitics, social media, and a possible third thing. I hope Eric's alright. Wait, what am I saying? Eric doesn't even use TikTok. And even if he wanted to, seeing this story, he's like, nah, I'm not gonna get TikTok anymore. I think Eric dodged a bullet there. So, yeah, that's life. If you don't do stuff, you don't see what's gonna happen, because you're not involved with something to begin with. And if there are people that are heavily against whoever is controlling TikTok right now, they would already be going to other apps like Snapchat, Rednote, Neptune, and maybe this project that me, Eric, and Shadowminer are working on. Although we're still working out the kinks and other bugs that are roaming about, I do question if that's ever going to be done at any point in this decade. Never say never. We must always have hope, even things look very unlikely at some point. So, Risk 11, one of the regular co-hosts for this podcast, had sent something on the Discord group chat, and it's in regards to a by-election in a... let's see what it says. Okay, so, a by-election in the constituency of Gorton and Denton in Greater Manchester. Although I can't find any particular news stories regarding this other than BBC Northwest Tonight, the current Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, is planning on running for representing Labour in that by-election. And according to the Nowcast, which is collecting many polls, so on and so forth, there's so many complicated math that goes into it. According to the Nowcast on Election Maps UK, it has looked like that Labour could win the by-election for Gorton and Denton by roughly 3% ahead of Reform. But that's not the only thing going on with this Gorton and Denton by-election. It's been known that the leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, is also wanting to run for the Green Party in that Gorton and Denton by-election. But it doesn't stop there. There is more. Zia Youssef, one of the notable Reform UK members, has also been on BBC Question Time multiple times. He is also wanting to run in the Gorton and Denton by-election for Reform. So, there isn't a date set out yet for the Gorton and Denton by-election, yet once there is word about that by-election, everyone is going to talk about let's see what Reform is going to do. Could they win it, or will Labour still manage to hold on to the current constituency despite the many downfalls they're currently in right now? Or maybe the Greens could win it because, well, Zach Polanski is doing very well. I mean, he's carried the Greens to double its membership from even before he became leader. So this is cinema right there. Everyone's going to be talking about the Gorton and Denton by-election. So much. There is going to be so much word. Let's see what's going to happen. I'm not going to rule out Reform having a chance, and I said having a chance. I know Labour still has somewhat of a chance, despite, well, the press and reputation it's currently in right now. And of course, Greens, they could win it. They're doing pretty well, but could they do well enough to actually win that Westminster by-election in Gorton and Denton? I'm telling you, again, absolute cinema. There's so much. Goodness. Yeah, it just got a lot juicier. Now that does make me wonder if Andy Burnham does become the new MP for Gorton and Denton, would he have to resign as Greater Manchester Mayor? being the mayor of Greater Manchester also means he is the head chief commissioner for the Greater Manchester area. If you're the chief police commissioner, you cannot run for any other public office. Because, not that people have said it, it could be argued that it most likely be a conflict of interest. Then again, many people in office are a conflict of interest to some extent. Honestly, I don't want Andy Burnham to step down as Greater Manchester mayor. In my opinion, I think he's done pretty well. Not saying he's doing a good job, but he's certainly not doing terribly either. And given what Andy Burnham is doing in Greater Manchester is pretty much the reason why out of the Labour supporters that are still with Labour, that haven't gone to the Greens and reformed for some reason, he is what is going to help Labour from going down any further. Likewise with Robert Jenrick. The reason why people were still supporting the Conservatives is because there's a likely chance that Jenrick could have been the next Tory leader to help the Tories into the upcoming local elections to win back the seats they have lost in the last few years. Likewise, holding the seats that the Tories currently have in Westminster. But of course, we already know what happened with Jenrick. He was fired by Badenoch, and now he's defected to Reform. Many of the people that supported Jenrick, and only Jenrick, have now switched over to Reform. And yeah, at this point, the Tories are going to continue going a downward spiral. So anyway, back to Andy Burnham and that by-election in Gorton and Denton. Wait, is it? Yeah, Gorton and Denton. If Andy Burnham was to win that by-election, he's going to have to step down as Greater Manchester mayor. And taking this place will be Kate Green, who is currently the deputy mayor of Greater Manchester. I think. But either way, whoever's currently the deputy mayor of Greater Manchester will take over for Andy Burnham if he was to win that by-election. I'm not going to rule out Labour winning, but I'm certainly not ruling out Reform either, and especially the Greens. This is going to be exciting. There's so much that's going on right now. So let's see what is yet to come. So much. Carney says upholding Canadian values key to sovereignty as authoritarianism rises. On Thursday, Mark Carney said that staying true to Canada's values is key to maintaining its sovereignty in a speech to kick off the cabinet retreat in Quebec City. Carney's Davos speech urged middle powers to band together to resist coercion and declared a rupture to the old rules-based international order earlier this week at the World Economic Forum, Davos, Switzerland. In prepared remarks, Carney said, "There are long periods of history when these values can prosper unchallenged. Ours is not one of them, and pledged to protect childcare, dental care, and pharmacare, while prioritizing economic cooperation, international trade, criminal justice reform, artificial intelligence, and defense investments." Ministers are scheduled to review progress on mandates at the Cabinet Planning Forum, hearing from experts on economy, affordability, and security before Parliament returns on Monday. His Davos speech drew a standing ovation and praise from Claudia Sheinbaum and Jim Chalmers after a one-week trip to China, Qatar, and the World Economic Forum. You know what? I'll give Carney this one. If he says he stay true to your values, so be it. Of course, there'll be people that's going to disagree with him on those values. Not just the values in questions, but people's going to point out that you're not sticking to those values. What are you on about? You're being a hypocrite. I'm not going to get into that. Or at least I will try not to. In regards to the World Economic Forum, me, Risk11, and Eric, we have talked so much about the World Economic Forum on a couple episodes many, many months ago. It's been at least a year or two since we talked about the World Economic Forum. And at best, we're kind of skeptical about what the World Economic Forum has plans for the future and society. Yet there has been a couple of posts on social media talking about, well, there's at least two posts in my opinion that stood out to me. There was one post was pointing at Gavin Newsom, saying that you're the governor of this place, but yet you're here. And it was pointing to Switzerland as the place that Newsom is supposedly at. Yeah, that's literally the context. That's the short caption. There was nothing else to it. It's just that Newsom is the governor of California, so people expect him to do works regarding California. Yeah, people are saying, "Oh, why are you at Switzerland? Why are you at Davos? Do you not care about California?" That's what people will likely be saying. Not that there's nothing wrong with going to other places and get new ideas. However, if you're prioritizing going to other places or addressing issues of other places besides the one place which you've been elected as their leader to make life better for the people living in which the area you've been elected as leader for, then you probably shouldn't have been leader of that particular area to begin with. State, city, country, etc. And there's another post. Katy Perry was one of them when she was doing she went in the Blue Origin ship organized by Jeff Bezos with other female celebrities. Not exactly the whole caption, but whoever posted that regarding Katy Perry going to the World Economic Forum pointed out Katy Perry burned 300 something tons of carbon dioxide, yet she's going to Davos to talk about environmental sustainability or something about the environment, which that's gonna be hard to that's gonna be hard allegations to dodge. There's no arguments you can make about that. There's no defending from. There's no saving yourself from that. It's gonna be hard. It's absolutely challenging. Yeah, the world keeps moving. People are going to contribute ideas. Say we must do this. We need to do what we can for our children, our communities, for our surroundings, do what we can for our communities. Yet they know so little, if nothing if not nothing at all, about communities in many countries which they say they want these ideas to be implemented. Nothing wrong with promoting new ideas. It is important, however, to understand the context of the ideas in question and understanding the climates, the environment, and the culture of the communities in which you want these ideas to be implemented. Those are key points that's worth noting and mentioning. I'm just curious to see how this goes. I may have my opinions on stuff. Yet I will allow people to go ahead with what they want to say, how they're going to do it, and just see how people react to that. And if people don't seem to like these ideas, well, save it for another time. Maybe next time, guys. Or maybe just go back to the drawing board, see what went wrong, and maybe, okay, so maybe we should address this. And then we come back. People are praising, jumping up and down. Okay, now we see what's going on. They want this. Now we can go ahead with it. No one knows how powerful the voice of the people are. There may be people on top with the power to go ahead with their ideas, but unless the people, the majority of everyday public civilians, don't say anything, then whoever's on top are just going to continue pushing these ideals that they believe is best for the rest of the world. So yeah, that's pretty much wrapping up on Davos. And of course, back to Mark Carney with values of Canada. Again, I'll give him that. I know Risk doesn't like Carney. Yet, he was happy that Carney was elected as Prime Minister of Canada because, well, you may have to ask Risk about why he was. You're going to have to ask Risk why he was so happy about Carney being elected as Canadian Prime Minister. It's likely something to do with Trump being able to bully Canada easily. Because if if Polyev did win that previous Canadian general election, then whatever Trump was going to do with Canada, it was going to be difficult for Trump. Yeah, that's at least what Trump said about regarding with the Canadian general election. Trump actually wanted Carney to win, to be the Canadian Prime Minister. Which seems a bit odd, because Trump doesn't agree with Carney's ideas or his plans for Canada. Yeah, things happened the way they happened, and now Carney is going ahead with diplomatic missions, giving money to Ukraine, visiting Qatar, speaking out against what's going on in Sudan. It's looking pretty eventful for him, especially if you don't exclude Trump from the picture. Everyone's talking about the Orange Man. What about other leaders? What are they doing? So, that is that. Sixth injured in stabbing attack at Kurdish demonstration in Belgium. 6 people were injured, 2 critically, in a stabbing attack during a Kurdish demonstration near Upperplein Square in Antwerp, Belgium. 2 suspects have been arrested to the stabbings that occurred as the protest was ending around 7:30 p.m. Around 50 protesters were present at the rally, which had been peaceful until the attack took place. Oh dear. That is awful. Why go stabbing people? Do people hate other people so much that they're just like, yeah, I gotta stab that person? No, don't do that. That is not okay. It's awful. Outrageous. Now, I don't want to jump too much on the Kurdish people bandwagon. Could these suspects could have stabbed protesters if the protest in question was about something else? Or was it the fact that these 50 odd people were protesting for the Kurdish people is what drew these suspects' attention? I'm just asking questions. It was only 50 people protesting, and yet there were 2 suspects who have been arrested for suspicion of stabbing someone. I don't know, man. It's I'm actually getting. This is making me more curious about what's going on in Kurdistan and the Kurdish people. That's just me. I'm not sure if a story like this could have been said for any other protest about Palestine, Ukraine, Sudan, Iran. Regardless of how many people were protesting for those causes, I'm wondering if a story like that would have been reported on, regardless. It's interesting to think about. It is something to think about. Prince Harry says sacrifices of British troops in Afghanistan deserve respect after Trump comments. Prince Harry issued a statement rebuking US President Donald Trump's Afghanistan comments, stressing British troops' sacrifices deserve to be spoken about truthfully and with respect. In a Fox News interview, Mr. Trump said Allied forces stayed a little back, a little off the front lines, and noted NATO invoked Article 5 for the first and only time in 2001. Britain lost 457 service personnel killed, with thousands of lives changed forever as bereaved families and military injured personnel carried the coast. The Prime Minister demanded an apology from Trump as ex-servicemen and military families expressed anger, amplifying calls for the President to apologize for his remarks. The Duke of Sussex served 2 frontline tours as an Army Air Corps co-pilot gunner and said, I made lifelong friends there. I'm with Prince Harry on this. So, people can say what they want about Prince Harry, the royal family in England. Out of all people that we know from the royal family. Now, of course, there have been people, members of the British royal family, that have served in the military. However, Prince Harry, going to Afghanistan and seeing what he had experienced, how can you argue with that? And lives in Afghanistan amongst British troops had been lost. In my opinion, I don't think what happened in Afghanistan should have happened to begin with. It's madness how it shouldn't have happened to begin with. Prince Harry is right. British troops in Afghanistan deserve respect. There's no arguing with that. And I will end off with this. Rest in peace to all the British troops who have lost their lives in Afghanistan. I send my condolences to the friends and family of those British troops who have lost their lives in Afghanistan. It shouldn't have happened, but it did anyway. Better later than never, but it's still too late. South Korea becomes first nation to enact comprehensive law on safe use of AI. On January 22nd, South Korea enacted the AI Basic Act, becoming the first country to have a comprehensive national AI safety law take full effect and establishing rules to address misinformation and hazardous AI effects. Aiming to boost domestic innovation, the Ministry of Science and ICT says the law establishes a safety and trust-based foundation and supports South Korea's ambition to join the United States and China among top 3 AI powers. Transparency rules require AI-generated content watermarking and metadata labeling, generative AI advance notice requirements, and apply to 10 sensitive fields, including nuclear power, education, and medical care. To ease the transition, the government announced a 1-year grace period, prioritizing corrective orders over fines capped at 30 million won, while the AI Act support desk will guide businesses. Ryu Jae-myung said, the law also establishes the Presidential Council on National Artificial Intelligence, Strategy and AI Safety Institute, applying technical thresholds and requiring global providers with 1 trillion won revenue, like OpenAI and Google, to appoint local representatives. Bravo, South Korea. Spot on. It's about time that a country has a law regarding AI safety. Yeah, it's just AI safety is my concern. And who else but South Korea? I'm glad someone's taking this seriously. Yet, there's always a wonder in this world. Now, of course, people are going to be concerned about AI is taking our jobs. It's getting too advanced. We're going to lose our jobs, man. And that is somewhat true, at least in the next decade or two. However, as it stands now, artificial intelligence is just feeding information to each other to keep itself afloat, which is a bit, it's just lazy and embarrassing because without these companies that are driving the AI innovation, will people just focus on other stuff? Or are they just going to be sitting ducks, doing nothing until someone tells them to do something? Well, we're just going to wait and find out to see where this will take us. 5,500-year-old skeleton yields oldest evidence yet of syphilis-related bacteria. Scientists found a genome of Treponema pallidum, 5,500-year-old, remains in Sabana de Bogota, Colombia, representing the oldest evidence of syphilis-related bacteria yet discovered. This discovery shows that syphilis-related bacteria have existed in the Americas for over 3,000 years, longer than previously thought. Research indicates that the ancient strain diverged from other lineages about 13,700 years ago, while modern subspecies emerged only about 6,000 years ago. Lars Ferhan Schmitz stated that these findings enhance our understanding of the evolution of pathogens and health risks. Impressive. Well, nice to see there's some discovery made. We're always finding new discoveries of artifacts, extinct species, bacteria, and maybe even buildings that were built thousands upon thousands or just a couple million years ago. Like before even our own recorded history of existence. There is a lot. Good on the researchers to find discoveries about pathogens, bacteria, and hopefully we find a way to combat ourselves against these viruses. If it ever gets out of hand, that is. French government survives no confidence vote over budget process. On Friday, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu used Article 49 points to pass the revenue section of the 2026 budget, and French MPs rejected two no confidence motions. Lecornu is now expected to use Article 49.3 again to pass the spending section and approve the full bill after Senate scrutiny, stabilizing a process stalled under predecessor François Bayrou, because the Socialist Party signaled earlier in the week that it would not bring down the government. The left-wing parties, excluding Socialists, secured 288 votes, both short of the majority threshold. Lecornu argued this is a workable budget and pledged to keep the public deficit at 5%, while Faure said his party secured concessions including €1 meals and nearly €8 billion in levies. Warning from the far right came as Marine Le Pen, National Rally parliamentary leader, denounced what she called backroom deals and warned of a looming budgetary Chernobyl. If you're having people from both sides of the political spectrum arguing about your decisions on a budget, you're either doing something very right or doing something very wrong. There is no in between. If there is in between, it has to be one side agreeing over the other, or the other side agreeing over the first side. I don't have much of an opinion on this. This is all I know of the summary. There isn't much detail about what the budget entails. Is it budget about energy? Is it education? The water supply? Local governance? Or maybe something about sports clubs getting a worth out of their money than they should be doing. I'm not saying that is true. I'm just making the point about what is this budget about, and why is both the left and the right of the French Parliament turning these proposals down, or why they seem to be in agreement to this. Uh, well, let's just see how this goes. Something is going to happen, and it's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be a wild ride. Casemiro to leave Manchester United at the end of the season. Manchester United announced on Thursday, 22nd of January 2026, that Casemiro will leave when his contract expires this summer. At the player's request, the club revealed the announcement now avoids speculation and keeps focus on the European return push, while United sources said the deal decision was made earlier. Across 4 seasons at Old Trafford, Casemiro scored 21 goals in 146 appearances. After joining from Real Madrid for $60 million and won the FA Cup and English League Cup. United added that supporters will have the opportunity to recognise Casemiro's contributions at the final home game of the season against Nottingham Forest. as he will become a free agent after the season. Given recent managerial turnover, Michael Carrick, appointed head coach until season end, leads after Ruben Amorim, the second manager to depart during Casemiro's time at Old Trafford. Well, firstly, I have to say, it's unfortunate Casemiro wants to leave, or has a desire to leave. Then again, I don't blame him, actually. As good of a player he is for United, may not may not have done much as he did at Real Madrid. However, Casemiro did pretty well for the times he has been on the pitch and scored the 21 goals he has scored. But Casemiro leaving as a free agent, really? Can't Man United negotiate with some other clubs to get the player? Why would Man United just let Casemiro go for free? Even if there aren't clubs that don't want Casemiro, it's at least worth Man United trying to get a deal with other clubs out of him and use whatever money that's being made and to reinvest back into the club, or maybe use part of that money to get another player. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Yeah, don't let Casemiro leave on a free agent. There's an opportunity to get some money out of that and use it somewhere else. I'm just saying, man. Also, yeah, actually, that's all I have to say on that. It's unfortunate Casemiro is going to leave Manchester United. Then again, I don't blame him. It did very well for the time he has been on the pitch. However, the decision by the Manchester United board is what is primarily the reason that's what's holding Man United back from excelling in competitions in the English Premier League, Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and the times Man United were competing in Europe. But they're not competing in Europe now, that's for sure. Yeah, outrageous. Absolutely. Now, things can't get any worse, but they certainly won't get any better either. I'll put it like that. It's going to go up and down like a roller coaster, and nothing else. Floods in Mozambique have pushed crocodiles into towns, resulting in at least 3 deaths. Over 700,000 people have been affected by the severe floods across Mozambique and neighboring countries, leaving a trail of destruction. The World Health Organization warned of severe disruptions to health services in affected provinces due to destroyed facilities, leaving tens of thousands without access to care. Firstly, rest in peace to the 3 Mozambicans who have lost their lives as a result of the Mozambique floods. I send my condolences to their friends and family. And the crocodiles too, if they're still alive. Or if they're no longer alive anymore. But still, the crocodiles too also get their condolences. Just looking at the picture, yeah, that is devastating. But yeah, well, I hope Mozambique gets back on its feet and recover from this devastation of a flood.